Hi there. Seeing as though it's it was International Women's Day on Monday, and there's been lots of events this week, I thought it would be really good to have a chat with my neighbouring councillor, Councillor Al Garthwaite, councillor in Hyde Park and Headingley. Hello, Al.
Hello. Hello, Emma.
You're in a car. It's
I
busy
am in a
weather.
car. I
Yeah.
am.
You're out and about today.
I'm out and about. I've been giving out information about donations to a food bank, which we'll be collecting on Sunday and Monday.
All in a day's work. So, yes, I just thought we could reflect a little on the sad news this week of the death of Sarah Everard, which has obviously been kind of big news and been talked about a lot. And I think just in the last hour, the human remains have been confirmed as her body. So, our hearts go out to her family and friends. And it's just shocking, isn't it, that a woman walking home on a well-lit road, that this could happen. So just wondered what your thoughts were kind of reflecting on this.
Well, of course, it is incredibly sad, and I can only imagine what her family and friends are going through. But it makes me very angry that this can still happen. And also some of the reactions on social media have been very blaming of her, which is just completely wrong. Why was she out on her own and so on? And this is the sort of thing that way back in 1977, when we started the Reclaim the Night marches, we were protesting against this idea that a woman shouldn't go out on her own, and if she does, then if something bad happens, it's her fault. Why was she in that place? Why was she there at that time? What was she wearing? Had she had a drink? This, that, and the other.
Yeah.
And really, this is nothing to do with it. And those things are not said about men who might get attacked. It's just sympathy. Oh dear,
Yeah, and it seems to me she'd modified her behaviour. She was wearing bright clothes. She was on a main road. Kind of all the things that we check ourselves doing all the time. So you're right. And the blame is not hers.
No.
I came to Leeds in 1994, and as a student, remember, the Reclaim the Night marches through Hyde Park and kind of attended those. But it's amazing that you were kind of at the start of this, initiating it back in the 70s. So I just wondered if you could tell me a bit of what was the culture and the atmosphere like then? What led you to kind of see the need for this movement?
By 1977, I'd been an active feminist for a number of years, and increasingly, along with other feminists at the time, growing angry about this culture of woman blaming, basically, whether it was a situation of domestic abuse and violence, it was meant to be her fault. Whether if it was rape, I remember somebody saying to me once, "Nice girls don't get raped." I mean, for goodness sake. I do hope that attitude, at least, we've seen the last of that. And then this attitude that women should stay home or have male protection, whether they're going to work, whether they're going to an evening class, whether they're going out to visit a friend, or indeed to go to the pub, that they should not do this on their own. And if they do, then they're to blame. And this was the sort of thing that we were very keen to protest against. But it wasn't just that. We did know that there was a serial killer around who was later to be found to be Peter Sutcliffe at that time. But it was also the constant sexual harassment that women experienced, from wolf whistling to groping to attempted coercion, sexual activity, all this sort of thing. And I remember at that time where I lived in Leeds, there was, around that time, we were being converted to natural gas.
Mm-hmm.
And the men who were doing the conversion were just awful. Every comment, staring, attempted touching. It was just a nightmare living there at the time. And we attempted to protest, but nothing at all happened. That's something that might have changed now. I think it would have done. But we were just generally very angry and we wanted to express that. So by meeting in groups, one group met at Hyde Park, the other group in Chapeltown, where I was living at the time, and there were 30 or 40 in each group, and we marched down to City Square and shouting slogans like, however we dress, wherever we go, yes means yes, no means no, or women unite, reclaim the night. And it was really good. And we had some leaflets to give out to explain to passers-by what we were doing. But at that time in Leeds, the city centre was pretty deserted by 11 o'clock at night on a Saturday. Well, it's not, we know it's not like that now.
Yeah.
Well, it is like that now in COVID.
Right now, yeah.
Normally, not like that. But at the time, that was how it was. But I remember walking down North Street and a group of men came out of the pub, and there we were, women walking down the street, and they said, oh, you know, let's at them, started coming towards us with comments. And so we advanced towards them in an angry way, and they shrank back, which was great. Which was really good. Because it's about refusing to be a victim, I think, saying we're not taking on this role of just, oh, we're going to stay home and we can't go out, we can't do anything. Because in fact, it is very rare for a woman to be attacked and murdered by a complete stranger. Yeah. Obviously, it's happened, and sadly, it's happened recently to Sarah Everard. But it is rare. But the sexual harassment, the everyday.
Oh, we've lost your sound, I think.
I forgot to mute.
Yeah.
The everyday harassment that young women experience. I think that recent survey, was it 97% of young women?
That's right, yeah, it was a UN Women's survey that said 97%, I think, of 18 to 24-year-olds have experienced sexual harassment. And I think, you know, any age women, it was 80%. So obviously we've got these horrific cases, extreme cases, but the reality is, you know, you can ask any woman, and every woman that you know will have their stories of experiencing harassment, abuse, you know, every day. And I've got a 16-year-old daughter, and I've been talking to her recently. And for her and her friends, you know, that is their reality, and the kind of effect on their mental health, and also just, you know, sort of questioning themselves, like, is it our fault? You know, there's a lot of blame and kind of guilt that women really unfairly carry, because and we kind of normalize, don't we, that, well, it's just normal that this happens. And sometimes you have to kind of pinch yourself and take a step back, that, you know, because it's so normal, it's not okay. So for, you know, some, you know, I wonder if you think there has been progress made since the 70s, but what is there still to do? And also now, of course, we've got the extra environment of social media that, you know, can be a good thing on many levels, but also, you know, a harmful thing. So I wonder what your thoughts are on social media and the good and bad uses of that, and yeah, how much progress has actually been made.
Yes, I think that social media can play a strong part in making women feel as though it's their fault. And there's some things that are said are really horrible, but I do think that we have made progress. I think that, for example, back in 1977, Leeds City Council councillors were doing nothing about any of this. Well, I'm a councillor now, and in my role as councillor, I've initiated training for bar and club staff by City Council officers to so that they can recognise and deal appropriately with reports or incidents of sexual harassment or partner abuse, anything like that. Yeah. And extended that to taxi drivers, because they see all sorts of things in their cabs. Of course, and they should know how to report it and who to. Yeah. And in terms of the discussions I have with the police, I know that they are doing quite a lot to track down predators, which I can't really go into the details, but they are very aware. And I do have those meetings with the police. And even, it sounds like a small thing, but it's significant. When I first became a councillor and I got reports of different crimes, for example, in the city centres over a quarter, it was they were categorised as shoplifting or what it might be, and then one of them was violent offences of violence, and sexual offences were sort of hidden within that. And I said, no, we've got to have sexual offences as a separate category.
Yes.
Now is that means it's more noticed, it's taken more seriously, it's dealt with more rigorously, and a survey was done about it and of the extent of it, and it uncovered all sorts of things. So just something like that will actually make a big difference.
Yes.
Leeds City Council is very much, as an organisation, totally against women walking in fear and feeling under attack, and wants to do everything we possibly can to deal with this. I think that on-street harassment, violence, and so forth, there's various measures. One of them is general awareness of anyone whose job it is to look out for it. Another is increased reporting by those who experience it, and that those figures are going up.
Probably not enough, are they? So I wonder, like, how, I guess women will only share things if you think you're going to be believed, and because things are often so minimized, or kind of, that's just the way things are, boys will be boys, that so we need a culture where women are believed when they speak out.
Yes. And I think that has increasingly become the case, but there's still a long way to go. But it's become the case. The call to make misogyny a hate crime, I think that would be really useful, because if men realised that what they were doing, they could actually get a criminal record for doing it, they would stop. This is the sort of the less serious forms of harassment. Obviously, if they do a sexual assault, they know they could get a criminal record. And then men who want to help can join the White Ribbon campaign. And this is an ideal place for men to become ambassadors, like the Leeds United football team, Leeds Rhinos, are all members of the White Ribbon campaign. And this is men talking to other men, being role models for men, saying, this is the way to support women, this is the way to be allies.
Yes, I think right. I think we need action on many different levels. So I think, we obviously need law to be changed. I think that goes some way to sort of changing the culture, doesn't it? So misogyny is a hate crime. I'm really inspired by the Our Streets Now campaign, which are two amazing sisters who are campaigning to make public sexual harassment a crime. And they've had a lot of attention in the media this week. And I think the government are now looking at their policy that they've got kind of written. So I'd really check out their Our Streets Now campaign, and I'll put that on my page. But also we need more education. So I think they're also campaigning, just for the curriculum to have this. And I've got the privilege of being on the advisory board of an organisation called Tender, that they go into schools and through drama workshop kind of teach about healthy relationships, about respect, about what is violence, what is harassment. So, we need education, we need the media to kind of be more responsible in the way that things are reported, and often the kind of gendered reporting that that puts kind of the blame on the woman and kind of not on the man. And like you talk about having male allies, that it's exhausting, isn't it, being a woman, having to constantly point out the misogyny in the room or on the street. So to have men that kind of challenge and take it on themselves to initiate those conversations with women, and ask women what their experience is like, because I think men are surprised, aren't they? So even when I talk to my husband or family members about what our everyday experience is like, it's so different to kind of what our male friends experience.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's a relief to have got older, because it does go away. The sexual harassment goes away. In silly ways sometimes, and all sorts of things happen, but that obvious sexual harassment does go away. Yes.
Yeah, so I wonder if if a kind of man asks you, you know, what can I do to help? What can I do to be an ally? What can, you know, what do I need to do to help sort of change the culture? What would you suggest, like apart from joining one of these campaigns?
Definitely join the White Ribbon campaign. Go on their website, find out all about it, and that will give lots and lots of helpful advice and opportunities for doing things. And then avoid behaving in a way that women are going to find frightening, like if a woman is walking along the street at night and you're behind her, either cross to the other side of the road, and if you're going to be walking faster, so overtake her in that way. Don't just sort of dog her footsteps, because that can be quite alarming.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that they are really important things to do, but like they're not kind of like long-term things, you know, how it would be amazing to one day, you know, have our city be a place that is safe and that women feel free in. So we've still got a long way to go, haven't we? If the only solution is to cross the street.
Oh yes, that was just an example of behaviour.
Yeah.
Clearly. And yes, there's the group of women who are in Women's Lives Leads, not a group of women, a group of grassroots women's organisations across the city who make up Women's Lives Leads have started a campaign for women-friendly leads, and they're setting various standards for what that would look like, in the same way that we have age-friendly leads, child-friendly leads, women-friendly leads. And ending violence against women and girls is a big aspect of this.
Yeah.
That group is meeting to look at how that can come about.
Yeah.
And similarly, writing a strategy to end violence against women and girls as part of the general Safer Lead strategy is another thing we can do. The national strategy is being revised at the moment, and a survey on views on that has just concluded. So that, I think, would make a big difference. And then generally, the knowing that the police or who you report it to are going to take an allegation seriously and do something about it. I remember what started me thinking about the training for bar and club staff was a story that I heard from somebody told me that she was in a bar in Leeds, and she was at the bar waiting to be served with a drink, and a man came up and behind her and put his hands over her breasts. So she turned round in anger and said, "How dare you, stop doing that, you know, you should apologise." He said, "Why should I apologise? You're here, you must be up for it." And then her boyfriend came along and he apologised to the boyfriend. So she and boyfriend were both very angry. They complained to the bar staff and said they wanted to call the police. Well, the bar staff said, "Oh, well, no, don't do that. Don't do that. It's stopped now. We don't want any trouble. Don't do that." Anyway, they did complain to the police. They did contact the police, who came and were very good, in fact. But by then, the perpetrator, had long gone. So there was nothing that could be done, and no one knew who he was. But that's just one example of something that...
Yeah, the education of
like should happen, and it's about raising awareness so that those bar and club staff don't react in that way.
Yeah, I think so. And so we had someone ask, what can we do collectively as a community to educate each other about harassment towards women, and how can we work together to feel safe? So not just in our city centre, but in our communities. So education of kind of, sort of bar staff and taxi drivers is one thing, but what else can we do as a community? Like, we want our streets, like locally, to be safe places.
We do. And I know in my ward and also in Reachwood as well, there are quite a lot of students, and the universities and the students' unions have done a lot of work trying to raise awareness, and also declaring it a safe space, and having this campaign, Ask Angela. So at a bar, if something's happening, you can go up and say, "I want to speak to Angela," and then they'll know it's a report of something. But in terms of the streets, I think that we have to do all these things. And I do think that the rise and almost acceptability of very violent pornography on the internet plays a part. And that some men are very influenced by this and just think that any woman is up for grabs and they can... And that needs to be tackled also.
Yeah, and I think a lot of young people, are getting a lot of their information about sex from
Yes.
from these places. So it's very important that we have really good sex and healthy relationships education in schools, and that young people have, kind of people they feel safe to talk about these things with as well.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, yes, it is. I mean, my daughter's a teacher, high school teacher, not in Leeds, in over in Lancashire, and she talks about all these things with the girls and the boys.
Yeah.
Sometimes depends on the teacher. It is there in the personal and social and health education curriculum.
Yeah.
It's just partly depends on the teacher and how they deliver it.
Yeah.
So that's about teacher education.
Yeah, I think it's just one of the most important things that in school where there needs to be really good practice. I
That's
read a really interesting book recently called Feminist City, and it's by a geographer who's Canadian called Leslie Kern. So she talks about how planning decisions in a city can have a big influence on making the city feel safe. And a good question she says that needs to be at the center of every policy is, how does this policy affect the most vulnerable in a city? Which I just think is a really good question to have running through like all the decisions, that
yeah. And
people.
we do. I mean, I'm on the city plans panel, and whenever something comes to us, I'm looking at it from that point of view. Is there good lighting? Are there places where predators might lurk? We looked at some flats on the city plans panel yesterday, and I was asking, what about the routes from the centre of town out to these flats?
Yeah.
Because there will be people walking home after being at a club, for example. Is it going to be safe? Is it going to be well lit? What is the situation? And this is all part of it. Designing for safety is very, very key.
Yeah, and I think realizing as well that kind of as a woman, kind of intersectionality is also a big factor. So if you're a woman and have a disability, if you're a woman and are of color, if you're a woman in LGBTQ plus, then you are more likely to experience harassment. So yeah, sort of thinking on those levels as well, that we are,
Yes, and the harassment can take different forms as well. Yes, Islamophobia can certainly play a part.
Yeah.
Yes, and all sorts of things as well. Women who are quite overweight have a terrible. The fatness is taken as a way of really getting at women.
Yeah, just any appearance of a woman compared to if you're a man, it's what you're targeted for, isn't it? Constantly.
No, that's quite true. I mean, it is also true that young men, especially, are in more likely to suffer from random violent assaults, which might be connected with mugging or, robbery. But nobody says that it's their fault when that happens.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate, and also they don't get, on the whole, they don't get the sexual harassment that women experience.
Yeah, and it would be amazing to be kind of have a culture in our streets and community that if a woman does get sexually harassed or just catcalled in the streets, that the kind of other people around call that out. It would be, and that has happened to me once, where someone shouted something to me out of a van when I was walking along the Otley Road, and a guy who was walking down the street stopped and like shouted back at the guy in the van and checked that I was okay. And I guess as a community, that's what we can do to help look after each other. That if we see or hear something, that we call it out and check with the person that they're okay.
Yes. Oh, definitely. I mean, several times I've intervened where there's been a partner violence going on, a man beating up, doing something to a woman, and you do put yourself at risk, but it's better than not doing anything.
We've all got a responsibility to look after each other, and I guess if that happens more, then it builds a culture where these things, however low level, are not acceptable, and then people feel more able to share. I remember as a student, I was flashed out on the ridge, and it happens so often to people that I didn't even think about reporting it, because that was just something that happened to women, which is actually, if it happened to my daughter, I would be, that's not acceptable. So
No, no, that's happened, and that happened to me when I was a student, and I did report it, and I was right to report it, but unfortunately,
Oh, you still there?
but I think it's always worth it.
Yeah.
Always worth it.
Oh, well, it's so good to talk to you, Al, and thank you for all that you've done to work towards women, you know, feeling safer in our communities and streets. It's just a real privilege to hear something about your work that you've done and that you continue to do. And you're obviously up for re-election this time, aren't you? And we, you know, we need a council that's, you know, full of the diversity that our city has. And of men and women from, you know, all parts of our city. So yes, all the best in your campaign, and
Thank you very much.
thank you so much for your time and all that you
Thank you.
continue to do.
All right, good to talk to you.
Thanks, Al. Bye.